And welcome to today's SOAR webinar on how working is promoting recovery for people with mental illness. The webinar is presented by the SAMHSA SOAR Technical Assistance Center at Policy Research Associates, a contract to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. My name is Kristen Lupfer, Project Director of the SOAR TA Center, and I will be moderating today's event. Many of you probably know the goals of the SOAR program speak directly to one of SAMHSA's strategic initiatives, recovery supports. SOAR seeks to end homelessness through increased access to SSI and SSDI income supports, directly addressing SAMHSA's assertion that to recover, people need a safe, stable place to live. This is essential, and for many persons in recovery, accessing benefits is a first step. Extends beyond and also encourages employment as a means to increase individual income and promote recovery, in line with, again, SAMHSA's assertion that to recover, people need meaningful work and the ability to enhance their skills through education. The webinar today seeks to strengthen that connection between SOAR programs and available employment support. SOAR works. Two housekeeping items before we begin. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for download on the SOAR website in about a week. Your line will be muted throughout the webinar. So right now, you can download the PowerPoint slides, if you haven't already, to view while you're following along. If you go up to File and Save Document, you can download materials there. And you can also download file by following the link to the SOAR website, which is at the bottom of this slide. At the conclusion of the webinar, you'll be directed to a link for an online evaluation. We really value and appreciate your feedback, and we use it to improve and inform future SOAR webinars and activities. So we ask that you take a moment to complete it immediately following the webinar. Briefly review our learning objectives and the agenda for today. Our experts are going to introduce you to the individual placement support model of supported employment. They will help understand how the IPS model can support individuals with mental illness who have experienced homelessness to seek competitive employment in the community. We hear from two representatives of a SOAR program that is offering employment support. We'll begin this webinar with a presentation from Dr. Robert Drake and Deborah Becker from the Dartmouth Psychiatric Research Center in Lebanon, New Hampshire. We'll hear from Tom Finna and Carl Reynolds from the Pathways to Independence program at Columbus House in New Haven, Connecticut. In a session with a question and answer period facilitated by the SOAR TA Center. Ask a quick poll question to gauge where you are all coming from. So that should pop up on your screen in just a moment. Does your SOAR program connect SSA beneficiaries to employment support services? Yep. Other question. Moment, we'll get that question pulled up. There, okay. So does your SOAR program connect SSA beneficiaries to employment support services? Yes, no, you're not sure, or you're making plans to in the future. So we'll give you a few moments to answer that. Holly, if you could broadcast the results. think it always takes WebEx a minute to get it all together. Right, so it looks like about a quarter of you have that connection. Agency, about a quarter aren't sure, but a lot of you are thinking about making that. Sorry, I'm reading this wrong. Some of you are thinking about making that connection in the future, so great. Really what you learned today will help encourage you to connect with employment supports in your community or to develop the programs at your agencies. I would now like to hand the mic over to Deborah Becker, who will begin her presentation on supporting individuals experiencing homelessness with individual placement and support.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here with you all today, and we're going to talk about a little bit about what we know that's been helpful helping people get work, and including people who have been homeless. And I always like to start my comments with the words of people who have received support in these programs and have gone to work. And you can see there, one person says, when I'm working, the noise in my head gets quieter. Second person said, working gives me a reason to get up in the morning, and that is the best medicine. And third person says, the money is nice, but I feel good telling my son that I have to go to work tomorrow. Those are, I like to think about those words when I'm doing this kind of presentation, because that's sort of what it's all about, I think. So we have 4 main points that we want to make, or that I want to make, and that a lot of people who are living with mental illnesses want to work. We know from the evidence that many can work. We have a fidelity scale that's like a roadmap that will help show programs how to implement effective services. And then the last point is that work is everybody's business. And I think it's not just an employment specialist job, but it's also the whole team of providers who are working with an individual, as well as family members, employers. It's really a team effort. So I also like to reference our friend and colleague Peggy Swarbrick from New Jersey, and she talks about 8 dimensions of wellness, and they're listed here, the first one being occupational, but she talks about how, you know, these are all the dimensions that really help to make us well, and that they're all really connected to work, if you think about it, that it helps with our emotional stability, it helps with our finances and connecting with other people and gaining new knowledge and skills. It helps to structure our day, expand our knowledge, and also just be in a healthy environment. So she's really smart in how she's thinking about that. So where are we now? A lot of people say that they want to work, about 3/4 of the people, and yet only about 15% are currently working in a part-time or full-time job, or even in self-employment. And then fewer than 2%, SAMHSA estimates, are receiving effective employment services. So that's a problem, obviously, that people aren't getting the support that will help them in their recovery through working or going back to school to expand their skills and knowledge to have higher jobs. So there are 8 principles that guide this evidence-based practice, and you see them listed here, and I'll just review them briefly, but then go through each one of them in my comments today. The first one is that these programs are open to anybody who wants to work. Second, the focus here is on regular jobs in the community, part-time, full-time. The rapid job search method, now I'm not saying a rapid job placement. People don't necessarily get a job rapidly right away, but they are assisted right away after expressing interest in thinking about work to start that process. Systematic job development is part of the process that the IPS specialists need to know about labor market in their communities and have connections with employers to help people gain access to jobs. And behind all of this, it's guided by people's preferences, that they want to go to work, how much they want to work, what kind of skills they have, and how that might map onto a job. People given individualized and long-term supports to stay in a job or transition on to another job if the one they're in is not working well for them. And this approach is really a team approach. It's integrated with mental health treatment, but other providers that are working with the individual. And then the last one here is that benefits counseling is included, and you all are obviously very strong on that, people need information about if they have benefits, what's going to happen to their benefits if they go to work in different situations, making a certain amount of money at so many hours a week, et cetera, so people can make their own choices. Let's go through each of these, and we'll do it rather quickly. The first one is that every person is eligible who wants to go to work who are in these programs. So we're not going to exclude people because they have a, involvement with the criminal justice system. We're not going to exclude people because they've been homeless. We're not going to exclude people because they're using alcohol or drugs. And really to not exclude people, we really need to be encouraging everybody to think about work and school. And ways to do that is to be having conversations with people. Have you thought about a job? What would you like to know about impact on if you have benefits or getting benefits and trying to get work at the same time? Other questions, tell me about your work experience. You're trying to get people to think and see the possibility of working, because lots of people have been in situations where they are feeling discouraged and really have lost hope. Another way to do that is within your agencies, build a culture of work. So where clients, consumers, people receiving services hear back-to-work stories from other people who've gone to work, and the staff are hearing these stories as well. So there may be meeting times that you can gather people together to hear from people who've gone to work. You may want to have written stories in waiting rooms, in your newsletters, and really promoting work. Having it visible in your agencies, posters and brochures of people who look like people that you're working with and going to work. So more examples of short conversations about work that really anybody on the team, any of the providers can be having when they're meeting with people. And it's really to increase hope and expectations, but we're also not, this isn't about pushing people into doing something that they don't want to do. Having discussions on, well, what are the benefits of going to work? Maybe now for you, and why you might not want to go to work now, and what would need to change in order for you to go to work. So having these ongoing conversations. The second principle is the focus here in these IPS programs, individual placement and support. These supported employment programs are competitive jobs. So they're jobs that pay at least minimum wage or the wage that others are receiving doing the same work. They're in regular community settings, part-time, full-time. They're owned by the worker, the way all of our jobs are owned by us rather than the rehabilitation agency. And they're not jobs that are set aside for people with disabilities. They're seen as regular jobs. I'm going to ask, well, what kind of jobs are you talking about? And so I just wrote down a list of jobs from a project that we did. It was actually in Rhode Island. And these were some of the job titles. And as you see here, they're all varied. landscaper, machine operator, sales clerk, security officer, data entry, deli meat cutter, and that's what you want to see in these IPS programs, because we're all individuals, we all have different skills and interests, and people stay in jobs longer when they match what their skills are and what their interests are. So all different kinds of jobs. Principle is that it's a team approach. So employment services are integrated with the mental health services, and the employment specialists will join the teams to think work in school for the people that the team serves. They typically have weekly meetings where they talk about how people are doing that they're serving, and the IPS specialist will give updates on who is on their caseload and the progress that they're making in terms of possibly getting some training, possibly going back to school, or even getting jobs. Really the reason behind this is that services are better when they're integrated and people are giving the same message to people. It's not helpful if a psychiatrist is saying, well, you have to wait till you have no symptoms to go back to work, or you'll never go back to work, and having an IPS specialist saying, you have such talent in cooking and making cakes that you have done for years. What do you think about starting a business doing that? Or maybe there's a bakery nearby. What do you think about finding some kind of job in that area, even though you haven't done it in a long time? So meeting together for planning and helping people around school and work. And oftentimes the IPS specialists are educating the other practitioners about how people can go to work, and asking questions. Well, Jonathan was just hospital. How is he spending his time, and are there interests that he has that could map onto a job? Workers tend to join one or two treatment teams. They participate in weekly team meetings. They share office space with the other team members, because that's how you really are sharing information, is where you're almost living together. And connecting with vocational rehabilitation, who can be a great partner in this. And family members can also bring a lot of information for those people who have family around. And when we think about family, we think about that in the broader sense, to include friends and people that people spend time with. It's everybody's business, and so by broadening the team that way, we want to gather from each person's perspective. Well, what are strengths that you know about that person, and what has that person done well? What did that person like in school many years ago? And thinking about the type of jobs that the person might be able to do, and sharing job leads, as well as helping to think, well, how that one person will cope with hearing voices by needing to be close to other people. And then another person may say that their coping is when they are more alone. So trying to think of job supports that are going to help the person, and it's always individualized. Okay, next principle is that preferences are honored, and we like to use this Peanuts cartoon where Linus says, I'd hate to have a job where you had to get up early in the morning. And Charlie Brown says, I'd hate to have a job where you stayed in the same place all day. And Lucy says, I hate to have a job where you had to be nice to everybody, and I guess I can relate to that, huh? But we're all different, and so we need to about people differently. So we're going to have individual preferences on type of job, the work setting, how many hours someone wants to work, that they want to start working, feel that they're able to work, have discussions about disclosure. Is the IPS specialist going to connect with an employer or not? Lots of people don't want that connection made. Others do, and that's really a conversation that IPS specialists have over time with people, because someone may decide that they don't want a IPS specialist contacting an employer, but if they have trouble over time getting interviews, they may want to change their mind. All right, the next principle is around benefits planning. And so all are helping people to get on benefits, and as you are connecting people to employment supports and employment programs, you may be trying to help them get benefits at that time, and that's sometimes tricky, because to get some benefits you have to, sort of prove that you can't work. But then at the same time, we're wanting to be hopeful and increasing people's opportunities to earn more money. And so it may be sort of a staging on how to do this, but that I don't think anybody wants someone to be on benefits forever, because in this country, living on SSI is going to be a life of poverty if that's the money that you have. And it may be more than you have when you were homeless with no money, but over time, I think we want to help people to see and imagine that they can have more. So people need good information about what's going to happen if they take a job and their benefits. Next principle is that the job search starts really right away. As soon as someone says, I want to think about work, they'll be assigned to an IPS specialist, and they'll start talking about, well, what kind of work you could do? What kind of work do you want? Have you worked in the past? And some people may have good ideas that they know what they want to do, and that really gives everybody a head start. Other people may say, I don't know, or may say, I'll do anything. In which case, then there need to be more discussions about, well, maybe you need to take a look at some jobs and what's entailed with that. I remember working with an individual who said he wanted to be a security guard. And I asked him about security guard positions that he knew was aware of, and he didn't really know of anybody. He just thought it would be a good job to have, that he could carry some keys and feel important. And so we went and looked at different security jobs, and we looked at a security guard in a bank. I remember we went to a local museum, and at that point he decided, you know what, I don't think I want to be a security guard. I don't want to stand on my feet all day. I don't think that's going to be good for me. So it's great information. So we keep going. We're not going to ask people to go take assessments, vocational evaluation, practice working. We're going to honor that they want to work now and start that process and go with the speed that's right for them. The seventh principle is that there is a systematic job development approach, and this really pertains to the IPS specialists, that they need to make it their business to know the labor market in the area where they have people they serve. It requires making face-to-face visits with employers and talking to hiring managers to find out about their businesses. And they make at least 6 employer contacts a week to hiring managers, and they make follow-up visits, because it's really all about getting a network of employers that you know. So you think about how you've gotten your jobs. There are quite a few of you where it's been through networking people that you know. So we've learned over time that helping IPS specialists learn how to make these contacts with employers initially, just to set up an appointment to meet with them, and to be prepared with good questions for these employers. And they even say right up front, you're not looking for a job today. What happens if you do that? If you do that and they say no, then that shuts everything down. So you want to be developing the relationship. eighth principle is around job supports, that they're ongoing and they're as needed and they're individualized. So the ongoing supports, we found that it's really important to have a face-to-face meeting with people before they start the job, right after the first day of work. It's not uncommon for somebody to go to work the first day and then come home and say, I'm not going back. I didn't get my paycheck. I felt like I wasn't treated well. So we found that having regular contact is important. Weekly contact for a while, and that people generally stay on these caseloads for about a year, and they feel confident about being a worker, and then we'll talk about transitioning out of IPS support. These are always individualized, and they're really, the whole team needs to think about support. It may be that the individual starts going to work in the morning and falls asleep on the job. Well, it could be related to many things, of course. It could be related to medication. Maybe the psychiatrist or nurse could be consulted on making some adjustments. It could be that the person, was staying up till 2 in the morning. So really trying to think about what's going on for that individual and having the whole team think about it together. So I've just gone over for you really the principles of this evidence-based practice. We have a fidelity scale that you can access on our website along with a manual. I'm going to give you our contact information, but as in closing, I refer back to Peggy, who talks about wellness and recovery. She's been a long-time consumer advocate and talks about wellness moves the focus from thinking one needs treatment forever to capitalizing on the strengths and abilities of the individual and his or her family and community. I'm going to end with a few quotes. One is, when you're working, you are part of the real world. You feel connected. Having a job gives me stability. I have something to look forward to every day. The next one is from a woman. I think it may be my favorite quote. In the past, people might have used labels to describe me such as homeless, mentally ill, and welfare mother. Now my titles are financial administrator, college student, and working mom. So we've developed over time lots of resources and connect with a lot of programs and try to connect programs with other programs. So if you want to look for our resources, they're on that website. It's posted there. The ask is in bold because we do have a place where you can ask a question and you will be answered by one of us from our Dartmouth team. We've got online courses around IPS for IPS specialists and supervisors, and we also have a manual. So I think that concludes my remarks, and I'm going to now pass this over to Bob Drake, my colleague at the Research Center, and he's going to go over some of the research with you.
Hello, I'm Bob Drake. I'm a researcher and a clinician and a family member and a person in recovery here at the Dartmouth Psychiatric Research Center. And I would like to go over some of the research that has been produced by groups all over the world, really, over the last 25 years. I'm going to start with a few basic facts. The first is that the majority of people, about 70% of people who have mental health issues or diagnosed sometimes with serious mental illness, want to work. This is that IPS across many, many settings, IPS supported employment, is successful in helping 60% or more of these people to achieve competitive employment and to stay in competitive employment. These people work about half-time, most like their jobs tremendously, and most benefit in many ways from employment. In research, the gold standard for research validity is called the randomized controlled trial. That's where we compare one program or intervention or treatment to another, and we randomly assign people, that is by flipping a coin, for example, to be in intervention A or intervention B. And this kind of procedure controls for lots of unobserved differences, and therefore in treatment research it's really considered the only type of study that we can believe in. The research evidence on randomized controlled trials of IPS-supported employment is pretty extensive. There are, in fact, 22 randomized controlled trials from all around the world. Every one of these trials shows that IPS-supported employment is more effective than active comparator. In other words, in every one of these trials, we have randomly assigned people either to get IPS or to get what was the standard of care or the best practice model in their community. Not comparing people to a placebo control, it's comparing IPS with an active comparator. Now this slide shows you the percentage of people who achieved competitive employment, and the percentages are on the left. The black lines refer to people who got IPS-supported employment, and so you can see some of these trials close to 80% of in IPS achieved employment. More commonly, somewhere between 70 and 60% of them achieved competitive employment. And then there are also studies out at the other end of the distribution where IPS was superior to the comparator condition, but not effective as it was in some of the other trials. So the findings from these 22 randomized controlled trials were that 56% of the people who were assigned to IPS-supported employment got competitive employment. About 23%, so less than half of those who were getting other kinds of services, were able to get competitive employment. But I pulled the three studies that are probably most relevant for this discussion because they focused on people with who have recent histories of homelessness. Now the first one is one from Baltimore, and most of the clients who entered this study had a recent history of homelessness, and you can see that 27% of those in IPS got a competitive job, 7% of those who were in a different day program that trained them for employment, competitive employment. And these numbers are particularly low for a reason. That's 27% and 7% are much lower than we usually see in studies. And the reason was that this study, they signed up everybody who was in the day treatment center. And they signed up lots of people who had no interest in working. They have learned over the years that motivation is important. We usually start with people who raise their hands and say, yes, I'm interested in working. When you sign up people who don't have any interest in working, what happens is they don't show up for services, and the intervention is not really designed to motivate people. It's designed to help people who are motivated to achieve success in employment. Now, the second study, I think, is much more relevant because it's a study that we did in Southeast Washington, D.C. We recruited nearly all of the clients for this study out of shelters in Washington, D.C. Almost all of them had recently been homeless. Many of them had problems with mental illness, but also had problems with crack cocaine and other addictions. But you can see here that in the randomized controlled trial, 71% of those who got IPS services achieved competitive employment, while only 9% of them who went to other programs in D.C. We gave them their choice of any other existing program in D.C., which we paid for. Only 9% of those people achieved competitive employment. Here's the best example we have of a predominantly homeless group of people with multiple impairments who did very well when they got good IPS services. Now, another project that we did recently was to combine the data from 4 IPS studies, one in New Hampshire, one in D.C., one in Connecticut, and one in Indiana. And across these studies, about 20% of the people who came into the study had recently been homeless. And what we found was, the overall employment outcomes were about 60% competitive employment for those in IPS, and there was no relationship between homeless history and employment outcomes. In other words, the people who had recently been homeless did just as well as the people who did not have a homelessness history. Okay. Whoops. One of the concerns over time was that we, in all of these studies, were following people for 12 months, 18 months, sometimes 24 months, because that's the length of research grants from the federal government. So we've more recently been doing long-term follow-ups of people in IPS, and there are now at least 2 studies following people for 10 years, and there are 2 more studies following people for at least 5 years. And all of these studies show that people once started on a trajectory of working competitively tend to do better and better over time. So you can see from these 2 10-year follow-up studies here that nearly everybody worked at some point during the 10-year follow-up, and a large percentage of them became steady workers. We know that IPS, there have been 22 studies now, and so there have been thousands of people involved in these studies. We've been able to look at lots of subgroups, and every one of the subgroups we've looked at so far shows that people who get IPS services do better than people who get a wide range of other employment services. And this includes people who have a diagnosis of PTSD, people who have dual diagnosis or co-occurring mental illness and substance use, older adults, young people with a first episode of psychosis, people who have been homeless recently, people with a criminal justice history, people who are disability beneficiaries of various categories, and various ethnic and racial minority groups such as African Americans and Latino Americans. If we're a research center here, and we would be happy to answer your questions, help you access books or research articles. Over the years, we've written hundreds of articles on employment services. So if you have a question about employment or how to find services or how to find the training that you need or how to find videos that illustrate the employment practices or so on, please email us at these addresses, and we'd be happy to try to find information for you.
Thank you, Debbie and Bob. That was so informative, and we really appreciate the offer of support. I know folks will be reaching out to you. So we're going to do another quick poll, and we want you guys to answer. What is one myth that Bob and Debbie debunked? Questions are, most people work about half-time, like their jobs, and benefit in many ways from employment. Most people with mental illness do not wish to work. And IPS can help 60% or more to become competitively employed. I think it's one of those myths that they debunked. get your answer in. We'll give you a little time to think through. To get your answers in, close the poll. Let's see if it did. Web doing its calculations. Most got it right, which is awesome. That means you guys were paying attention. Correct, that it's not that people with mental illness do not want to work, but they just might need assistance identifying and obtaining a job. It's the right fit for them at the right time, like we heard so clearly from Debbie. All right. Thank you guys for participating. Our next two presenters, Thomas Fortuna and Carl Reynolds, are going to share with us how income equals empowerment and tell you about the Pathways to Independence program at Columbus House in New Haven, Connecticut.
Thomas Fortuna from New Haven, Connecticut. Columbus House, and the name of our department is called the Pathways to Independence. We find that income equals empowerment in so many different ways. So we heard a lot of different reasons for working, and we are working on establishing that for each and every one of our clients. The Pathways to Independence program, we combine SOAR with employment, and hopefully the outcome that we're looking for is a holistic approach to recovery and sustainable housing and community integration. A holistic recovery-based support system, we help a person also re-engage in employment, and we target our services for individuals experiencing homelessness who have also a disabling condition. Our mission at this department is to increase housing, income, and health security for individuals who, again, are experiencing homelessness and behavioral health and or substance use disorder. We find that the things go hand in hand. In order to be successfully housed, the person needs income of some sort, and in order to have income of some sort, a person needs to secure good health. And so we find that it's cyclical. Housing, income, and health security is what is a good foundation for people to reestablish themselves in many cases back into the community. Our values here are the Pathways to Independence program promotes hope, responsibility, education, self-advocacy, and support, how to provide opportunities, skills, and education necessary to become independent and productive. That word independent is good, but we also find that interdependence is necessary when someone is working to reestablish ties back into the community. Our goals are to maximize our clients' access to income. So we do offer the employment and SOAR assistance. We also offer a ticket to work program through Social Security, the Employment Network. And we also have a homegrown program called Workfare, where we have piloted a couple of different areas to with people and give them basically internships here at Columbus House itself. We, again, also look to provide connections to healthcare providers. Again, without health, the foundation of your success is based on health. We facilitate and nurture opportunities for client employment. We offer educational support and assist for clients' financial stability and improved quality of life. Quality of life is very important to us because we find that we're talking about employment, we're talking about health, we're talking about housing, but I think it's all under the banner of quality of life, having a life worth living, having a life worth saving. Another goal is to identify and secure housing options in the community. It's done simultaneously. We have specialists in our department who work on housing, employment, financial literacy, and employment training into benefits programs. That's the SOAR Specialist. We also have a representative payee and healthcare referrals. Our representative payee is instrumental in that folks who receive benefits who would not otherwise be able to maintain their apartments now have an opportunity to have some structure in their finances for the representative payee program for those folks. That was, in a nutshell, the housing, the management, the income piece, which of course is divided into the SOAR and the employment. And one piece that is very important to us is the Employment and Enrichment Center, which we'll talk about in a moment. Enrichment Center, which has been funded partially by the United Way of Greater New Haven. It allows our clients who are interested to come together in a collaborative training environment, and they receive education and enrichment activities, and find, and this has been found from our graduates, they will discover greater self-esteem, greater recovery from addiction, better control of psychiatric symptoms, confidence, greater life satisfaction, and maybe for the first time in the life worth living. And again, when you're working with a homeless population, you have to address that have to have a life worth saving. Frankly, you know, a lot of our clients, their get up and go has got up and left. And so that's one of the things that we work with, is trying to reignite the inner drive that is inside a person that has probably been buried by years and years of circumstances, something beyond their control. Employment and Enrichment Center is fully staffed by instructors who are certified recovery support specialists, peers who have in some cases been where our clients have been, do a tremendous job of working at the level that seems to be productive with the clients that we have. We also have established a wonderful relationship with a local community bank. It's Start Community Bank. They have a vice president who visits our classes and talks about financial literacy and how to reestablish a banking relationship when they're ready. So that, first of all, you are seeing a friendly face when you finally do walk into that branch because you have met that person, and it's less intimidating. So it's proven very successful with our clients. And as a matter of fact, in some cases, they will also start the paperwork here at the shelter to get a bank account with SOAR Bank. This is helpful because it helps our clients not get gouged by check cashing places and start to redevelop a bank relationship. Another key aspect with our Start Bank relationship is they will look at each individual personally, and they will not automatically turn away someone who has a balance due with another bank. So in other words, when you go into a bank and you want to start a new account, the first thing they do is they look you up in a national system to see what your relationship was like with other banks. And frankly, most of our clients have had bad relationships with other banks. Well, if it's under a $500 threshold, Start Bank will accept you and open up what they call a second chance account, which has very, very minimal requirements and does exactly that. It gives you a second chance to reintegrate it into a banking system, which is a first step in reintegrating into the community at large. That we offer at the Employment Enrichment Center. First of all, it's 90 hours over a 6-week period, and we are teaching things like computers, math and reading comprehension. It's an internet-based program. Team building, something that's very often overlooked because the skills that are necessary to survive homelessness are not necessarily the same set of skills that you need to survive in a workplace. So we work on team building. We work on soft skills. We also cover the usual stuff, the resumes, the cover letter writing. We drill on interviewing skills. We offer a housing education. What can I expect when I move into an apartment? What are my responsibilities? What are the landlord's responsibilities? And so we offer housing education. We also offer the Wellness and Recovery Action Plan planning tool. It's taught, again, by recovery support specialists. And also talk briefly about starting your own business, because a lot of entrepreneurial spirit that, if ever harnessed, could be a force for helping individuals increase their financial productivity. We have a jobs club, and it's on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1 to 3, and it focuses like laser on people who are interested in working. And they not only cover the necessary skills, but they also share success stories. They share disappointments and gives support from each other, so that they know that the god-awful challenge of finding a job, which is so often met with disappointment, they have others that they can get support from, not only paid employees, but their own, fellow members of the group. For lots of stuff. And for those who are interested in working, we have interview clothes so that they can make a good first impression. We also help with transportation, bus passes, rides, gift cards for personal necessities, and another vital factor, which is a telephone and computer access. In order to compete in today's job market, you need that telephone. and need that computer access. So we offer that here. We offer that as a way to connect to the job market. Here's the couple of photos of our dated close that we have received over time that accumulate because, and we can take a client in and they can, shop basically for clothes that are looking and well-fitting for when they go out on that interview. And the result is employment. When you finish the Employment and Enrichment Center, you'll have a resume, you'll have a cover letter, have a working email account, you'll interview practice, you'll interview clothing, you'll have a working cell phone, and a direct connection to a local community bank. So you're really prepared to get out into the community. And of course, you have the backup and support of the employment specialists who are working with you hand in hand to find that successful job placement. Do it with many community partners, career resources, Strive, Veterans Affairs, Bureau of Rehabilitation Services, which is the Connecticut Rehab Services Agency, Social Security Agency, and of course our local community health center. So, like our clients, we as a program at Pathways to Independence rely on interconnection between ourselves and other community partners to put this fabric together to support clients in their success. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about our Workfare program. And we've instituted this recently where those who are successful at completing the Employment and Enrichment Center program will now be able to intern at a Columbus House, get some free hands-on training. And we offered that in 2 areas. And again, this is just a pilot. They will get certificates, which they show employers that they have interned. First, they get job search, counselor services, and get graduate support. And a not so small benefit is they also get an extended stay, a guaranteed stay at the emergency shelter, and they can actually get bumped up into a more permanent situation while they are in good standing at the Workfare program. We also an employment network designation. Again, that's the Ticket to Work program through Social Security. We are brand new in this area and just have started to write our first tickets. So this is not just for folks who are homeless, but for the community at large, that folks who are interested in working that are receiving benefits, we can their tickets and assist them with that result. So the PTI program, looking back at the last 3.5 years, we have had 77 applications for Social Security disability approved over 3.5 years. And we've brought over $1.5 million into the local economy in awards. We have helped 104 individuals hired and retained over 3.5 years, which has resulted in over $3.5 million being into the local economy. The Employment and Enrichment Center, some numbers there. In the 12 months, 89 have attended, 63 have completed the program, and there resulted in 31 employment placements. A little note about the Employment and Enrichment Center: the number of people who complete the program dramatically increases if they stay. The longer they stay, the better the odds that they finish the program. Also, over 3.5 years, we have housed 205 individuals and rep payee services for 53 individuals. Two other programs that are also connected with SOAR and Employment. These are specific for veterans. There is the Support Services for Veterans Families, again connecting employment and SOAR, along case management and housing, and the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program, again connecting employment services and the Employment and Enrichment Centers. So that's it for me, and I'll turn it back over to our host to tell about the next speaker, my colleague, Carl Reynolds.
So much, Thomas. You guys are doing incredible work there at Columbus House. It's a lot for other folks to live up to and look towards, so thanks. Carl is now going to join in the discussion, and he's going to talk about the benefits of working and providing support. Carl?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Again, I am Carl, the Employment Service Coordinator here at the Columbus House in Newman, Connecticut. Yes, I'll be talking about the benefits of working and providing support. A lot of things I'm going to be talking about have already been mentioned, as far as the benefits of working, is, it's for health reasons. It's for the mind, it's a being, belonging. As I'm going to, Tom kind of touched on some of the things when we're talking about providing support, peer experience, individuals who have lived experience dealing with the relation that we're working with. What we find is sometimes individuals are, more likely listen or be more open to someone who've actually walked in the shoes. Because, if you haven't, sometimes they might have the mindset, you haven't been whatever it may be. Like Tom said, the EEC is ran by our peer support or recovery support specialists, what the titles are. They're certified, and they help individuals to reintegrate into the community as well as run the EEC. About the employment spectrum, and with the employment spectrum can ensure that, over 3.5-year period, and people looking at numbers and probably wondering, wow, they're doing it there. It has to do with, take my hat off to Dartmouth, because when I first started the Employment Services Program, I followed that model, the sort of employment process, meeting individuals where they are. And so, questions I always ask, because some individuals really don't know what they want to do. And just take them back, and when you was growing up, what was that one job you always wanted to do? A job that you have done, or it might be a job you've never done. I'll give you an example. Someone might say, I want to be a construction worker. And so I want to, now is to think outside the box. Well, what's so appealing that construction job? What is it that you like about it? And one say, I like working outside. Oh, okay, so we can get outside the box, and we can start looking at other jobs that, is outside, or I like working with my hands. So again, with that is to get them to think outside of just being that one thing. And, and with the jobs and everything that the individuals have gotten over the times, a lot of food service jobs in universities, VA hospitals, services, landscaping, security, truck drivers, car construction, drivers transport, parts maintenance, housekeeping, roofing mechanics, and the wages range anywhere from minimum wage to $5 an hour. So, with that, and when it comes down to the EEC, if individuals are illiterate, there's another program which is Literacy Volunteer, which can refer individuals to here in New Haven that will get them to a place to where they can, come to the EEC and, come to the classes and everything. As far as job development, it starts with meeting individuals where they are, what it is that they want to do. I don't go out and be job developing at a fast food restaurant when I got a bunch of people who are looking for construction. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of resources. Meeting the individuals where they are and encouraging and motivating them. And that window that was mentioned earlier on in the webinar, it's so vital. And we don't want to miss that window of opportunity. And when we're talking with employers, we have to be mindful that we're dealing with two customers. We have the customer that we are helping, and then we're talking about the customer who's the employer. We have to do our research, the employer, what it is that they want to do. We have to talk to them as to what's most important to them, which is their bottom line. And again, how we go out as job developers is very important as well. When I go out to job develop, I go out as if I'm going out for an interview myself. I'm putting my best foot forward as far as everything, even my attire. I want to dress professional because I want them to believe and think and know that the people we'll be bringing them is a reflection of who I am. And so when we bring the individuals, once they say yes, and then, we start bringing individuals there, but we just leave them. I mentioned earlier, when you go out and you talk with an employer, you go back, and you go back again, and you try to get it to become personal, even to the point to where, you might find out what their favorite cup of coffee is, and the next time you visit, you come with that little cup of coffee, put a smile on their face. Important because you have so many people who are looking for job placements, and I like to say that I go a step beyond that. I'm looking at job retention. Sometimes it's easy to get a placement, but if you place somebody where they don't want to be, they're not going to stay there. Sometimes you might place someone in a place that they say they want to be, and it doesn't work out. You have to go back to the drawing board, so what was it? And so it may have been that, yes, you got them that they want to do, but it was around too many people, and they don't like the work around. So now we go back and we revisit it. And if a person loses a job and they come back to your door, we should not personalize it. And not say to them, well, you already had your chance. No, not give up on the individuals that are serving because, that one day that you give up might have been the day that they were going to get it right. And I want to share a story about an individual with an employer who I have a solid relationship with. And I went and I remember talking with the director, and I said, I have a situation, but I know that this person can do the work. As we talked, the person that I'm speaking about only communicate through ASL, a sign language, can't talk, can't hear. And so there was a little hesitant, was like backed off, said, I don't want to have to deal with the American Disability Act. And I understood where it would come from. I just kept because they had already established a relationship. So as this person started working and everything, the director at this university actually ended up calling me and said that we're putting in our newsletter that this individual who here and can't speak had a lot to say. And so what they did was because all the workers really took liking to the individual, to where the director, the university, they allow 1 day a week for him to teach sign language to his coworkers so that he can communicate with them. And 2 months later, I get a phone call from a car dealership. You reference. And so as time was going on, not realizing that his wife and his baby was back in his home country in the Dominican Republic. And so as he was working and saving up money, he obtained a lawyer to get his back here, but in the meantime, he kept working. This individual who was on SSDI only get $900 a month and took himself off of the disability. And in the meantime, so now he's earning a decent income, and he stops by, and you can just see the glow. And then he's getting his own apartment. You back up, when he got his car, and I was there at the university one day, and this car pulls up with this loud music. And we were out there talking with some of the other people who I've helped get jobs out there. And when everybody turned around and they saw who it was, he threw his thumb up in the air with a big smile. And if you could have seen the look on his coworker's face, because they couldn't understand. This is a person who can't hear, who can't speak. But yet he was able and determined to work himself towards independence. That car. So then he got his apartment. And now his family is here. So now he is one family under the same roof all over again. And so I just had to share that. You know, so with developing with the individuals who are homeless, yes, they do want to work, and yes, they can work. And I give up on them. About 90% of the population that we work with are ex-offenders. And I'll carry that baggage with them everywhere they go. And that we let them know you may have done what they said done, but don't mean you have to be who they say you are. I want to be in training. You know, kind of mention all the trainings and everything that we do, EEC. And so I'm not going to, you know, go into the trainings all over again. But throughout the trainings and everything, there is a story, a very recent, that I want to share with a young man who through the EEC, homeless. He catches the bus 45 minutes. He gets up and he's on the bus 6:30 every morning without a day of work. 40 minutes going, an hour coming back. Determined. Oh, he didn't care. And June 1st, he moved into his own place. These successes of what employment and what SOAR can do that we serve. We'll not give up. And that's the reason why we're here. It's important that we go out there and we keep, when you're going out there job developing, leave no stone unturned. On the street, I can see a truck with a name on it that I've never seen before. And I follow that truck for blocks until it has to stop at a red light just so I can write the information down and then do follow-up. Important. I love what we do. It's important what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. You're absolutely right. It's so important, and thank you so much for sharing your fantastic stories. Your on-the-ground experience and perspective is so valuable, and I love what you said about that it's, you know, job retention, not just placement. So thank you. All right, so we have about 15 minutes now for Q&A, and just want to point out to everyone the contact information for Tom and Carl is on here as well. So there are two ways to ask questions. You can type your question into the Q&A panel, which is located underneath the participant tab. Or to ask a question by phone, you can virtually raise your hand by clicking the hand icon in the participant pod there. I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question live. So I'm going to check in with the folks at PRA and see what questions we already have in the queue, because I know a few have been asked during the presentation.
Hi, Kristen. We have about 6 questions for the presenters. The first one is the Dartmouth folks, and does IPS work with self-employment, and can you speak a little about that?
Hi, this is Debbie, and I think, you know, programs haven't focused a lot on self-employment, and I think that is something that needs to be considered. and also that our partners in Voc Rehab can be helpful on, but they haven't, I don't know of a lot of examples of self-employment other than people sort of starting up their own smallish businesses. But I can't really say more to that. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, only that, you know, every program I visit, that they have an example of somebody for whom that worked. I know in the program that I work with, we have a young man there who's very monitored situation because he has mental illness and drug addiction and also sexual behavior problems. A very bright young guy, and we were able to, he put together a proposal on one of these web programs where you ask for support. What is it called? Kickstarter? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, he got lots of money from Kickstarter, and he's doing a project on bathroom graffiti, which is a particular interest of his. And he's employed artists from all over the world with this Kickstarter money, and he's making a video and a book about this, and it's really great. You know, I think it's going to be a great product. But at least in the program I work in, he's the only one who's identified, you know, self-employment as a goal.
Thank you, guys. Next question.
Rehab staff are interested in learning if there are IPS services at any hospitals and how staff can become certified.
Well, this is Debbie again, and you know, we don't certify anybody. What we try to do is make sure that people have access to material, and so we have the information on our website, but we also have a couple online courses that people can take, and we give certificates of participation for that. And so that's a resource for people to be able to learn these skills. But we don't, you know, we don't certify people. And as far as people from hospitals, you know, I think it's really important that the staff are hopeful with the people, the patients, inpatients, about returning to the community and thinking about work. As far as, you know, going on job interviews when you're in the hospital, I think that can be difficult. But, you know, that message should be everywhere, that we're hopeful for people.
Thank you. Next question.
Several of our clients have expressed an interest in creating a volunteer group where program members and staff volunteer in the community. Is there any research that supports this? And does anybody have any ideas for evidence-based practices, curricula to support it?
Not much research to support the fact that, to support the assumption that people are going to like your jobs and stay with them, or that people are going to get something out of volunteer jobs and it's going to help them go on to competitive employment. So I think if people are interested in competitive employment, the research would say, you know, you should start that right away. If people are only interested in volunteer jobs, they don't need IPS support employment. Anybody can get a volunteer job, and anybody can help someone get a volunteer job. It's you know, in many cases, we worry that employers are taking advantage of people who could be paid for a job, and that's increasingly become an issue for the legal system. So one needs to be careful on that front.
is aware of supported employment programs that coordinate their efforts with supported education programs? And if so, what does the efficacy seem to be of these programs operating in a coordinated manner?
Well, I'll say a little bit, and then maybe Bob wants to chime in. That there is now a greater focus on working with young adults, and this would include people with a first episode of psychosis and early intervention, as well as transition age youth. And for that age group, education is clearly an important activity for them, as it was for most of us at that age. And so the IPS program combines people's interest and consideration in education as helpful. Some people do both. They will take a class and they will also have a part-time job. And young people, it's not uncommon for them to change their minds a lot, and so programs need to be flexible about that. Also working with young people, family members may also be involved. But the IPS approach includes that, and there's not a lot of evidence around, good research evidence about supported education. It really is an area that needs some help, I think. But helping people with education and schooling is part of IPS. You want anything more about the research, Bob?
Well, all of the early psychosis programs that I'm aware of around the world, including Europe and Australia and other places, are including supported education as well as supported employment. And the finding is that people switch back and forth a lot. I think it's also a pretty consistent finding that a college degree is probably much harder than competitive employment. We sometimes people who work for a few years and then decide they need more education in order to get a salary or get promoted or do some kind of specialist work, and so they go back to school and able to handle it. I see most people really doing school very part-time and working a little bit at the same time. And I reinforce what Debbie said there. Zero really well done randomized controlled trials of supported education, and there's no consistent model for doing supported education. And I think that's an area that needs a lot of work. Just when we started in employment, everybody knew exactly how to do it. It just turned out all the experts were wrong. And I worry that might prove to be the case with supported education, because there are an awful lot of people who are claiming expertise and they don't agree with one another.
Great for that answer.
The couple for the folks at Columbus House. One is, how many hours is the Workfare training internship?
This is Tom Fortuna. The Workfare program is about for 12 hours per week over a 6-week period of actual hands-on training. Time engaged with the employment specialist who is actively helping them seek employment.
Thanks. Our question is, are all of your relationships with a final employer, or do you also have relationships with employment services?
This is Paul Reynolds. They're with employers. with other services as well, but the jobs and everything that the individuals are getting are through the ships with the employers.
Great, thanks you guys.
Mm-hmm.
How does community agency develop and fund programs that can partner with the local mental health treatment and nonprofit agencies?
So maybe you could take that one. Can you speak to how Columbus House, the programs there are funded?
This program was funded originally through SAMHSA, and after the original project was concluded, our local state mental health and addiction services department picked up the funding and has funded it for the years afterward. After SAMHSA funding went away.
Someone is asking for resources. So what listserv or publication or other resource do you find most useful for connecting with the wider world of employment specialists focusing on their community's street-dependent population?
So to any of our panelists, Dartmouth, you guys shared your website and some of your resources, but are there other folks can go to make sure that they're connected and what's happening in this world of work?
One more time, please.
Yes, let me locate it. What listserv, publication, or other resources do you find most useful for connecting the wider world of employment specialists for connecting with the wider world of employment specialists focusing on their community's street-dependent population?
Myself personally, I'm not familiar with any publications.
I think, as you mentioned, Kristen, we do have our website, but we're also with you, creating a brief that hopefully could be posted on your website and, help give people information.
Yep, thanks. That's perfect. I was going to mention that and kind of point people to our website as well. So if you go to the SOAR Works website, and then you click on the bar at the top where it says library, we have different topics in the library, and one is on employment and work incentives. And so that link, you'll find some of our information on employment, some employment resources that our partners at Dartmouth have provided us, and then we'll also be adding information, including an issue brief that is asked right now up there. So you can kind of certainly SOAR listserv and keep checking back there for additional information that we'll post. And for one more question.
Oh, this one is coming from Billings, Montana. I am an employment specialist for people ages 15 to 18. Do you have any advice or resources for this age group?
Programs at Columbus House are for all ages. As a matter of fact, the very last person that I just enrolled into the program reached out of our foster care system, and he is homeless, and so he's enrolled in our program. So we hope to get him on his way.
Great. Well, it looks like we're out of time. So I want to thank again all of our presenters for not only your experiences and your expertise, but also reminding us the reason that we do this work. I know we weren't able to get to all of the questions. There was an amazing amount of excellent questions. And so what we're going to do is we're going to catalog all of those questions. We'll get back with our panelists to make sure that they get answered, and we'll send out a message with answers to those questions to all of you. So stay tuned. You're going to hear from us. As a quick reminder, please complete the online survey or evaluation of today's webinar. And for more information, of course, you can visit us on our website. You can email us or call, and we'll be sure to direct any questions or comments that couldn't be answered to the presenters. So thank you all, and have a great afternoon.